ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا وحبيبنا ومولانا وقرة أعيننا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم عبده ورسوله أدى الأمانة وبلغ الرسالة وكشف الغمة وجاهد في الله حق جهاده حتى أتاه اليقين فصلوات ربي وسلامه عليه أفضل التسليم. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم إن زلزلة الساعة شيء عظيم يوم ترونها تذهل كل مرضعة عما أرضعت وتضع كل ذات حمل حملها وترى الناس سكارى وما هم بسكارى ولكن عذاب الله شديد. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار ثم أما بعد. My dear brothers and sisters, in this few minutes, inshallah, that we have together, I wanted to remind myself first and foremost, and everyone here in this gathering, that one of the most important pillars of Islam, and in this case, I'm not talking about the 5 pillars of Islam. So as some scholars have deemed this one to be worthy to be the 6th pillar of Islam, and that is al-amr bil ma'ruf wal nahy anil munkar, to ordain what's good and forbid what's evil. The ayat and the ahadith are too many to go over during this gathering here. So briefly, inshallah, we'll touch base upon some of the virtues of doing this great sha'ira, and some of the consequences of abandoning this sha'ira, and so on and so forth. So starting with some of the virtues of this sha'ira. First and foremost, most prophets were sent down to their people, and this is one of their main jobs or main assignments is to call for ordaining good and forbidding evil. And as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَادْعُ إِلَى سَبِيلِ رَبِّكَ بِالْحِكْمَةِ وَالْمَوْعِظَةِ الْحَسَنَةِ. And here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is addressing his beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and is ordering him to call upon your Lord with wisdom and maw'idat al-hasana, and a good advice. So that is one of the great assignments and job of prophets alayhim salatu wasalam. Another virtue of doing this great sha'ira is one of the characteristics of the believers. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran again, وَالْمُؤْمِنُونَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ بَعْضُهُمْ أَوْلِيَاءُ بَعْضٍ يَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ. The believers, male and female, are from amongst one another. They call upon what's good, they ordain what's good, and they forbid what's evil. Another reason for, or another virtue of al-amr bil ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar is at-tamkin fil ard, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or Allah will give us ruling, or will allow us to lead the people on this earth. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the ayah that most of us know, كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر وتؤمنون بالله. That indeed you were the best nation sent to people. You ordain what's good and you forbid what's evil. Then if you notice, you put the iman in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The iman is last as far as order. So here he put the emphasis on amr bil ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar first to show us its importance. And just quickly, if you contemplate upon that, this is actually a conditional statement. We were the best nation. We are the best nation sent to humans. We will always be, as long as we ordain what's good and we forbid what's evil. Once we collectively, as an ummah, abandon the sha'ira, then we all are sinning. So that's why within our ummah there shall always be people that ordain what's good and forbid what's evil. It's also one of the reasons for Allah's victory, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran again, الَّذِينَ إِن مَّكَّنَّاهُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ أَقَامُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَآتَوُا الزَّكَاةَ وَأَمَرُوا بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَنَهَوْا عَنِ الْمُنكَرِ. That for those that Allah have given the ruling on this earth, then they establish prayer, and they give zakat, and then they ordain what's good and forbid what's evil. Now on the other side of the spectrum, what are some of the consequences if we as an ummah abandon, ummah and individuals as a matter of fact? I mean, ummah is we're all individuals that form this ummah. So what happens if if we abandon this sha'ira, which is ordaining what's good and forbidding what's evil. One of the consequences is Allah's wrath and punishment upon us. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَاتَّقُوا فِتْنَةً لَا تُصِيبَنَّ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا مِنْكُمْ خَاصَّةً. That you shall fear or avoid a fitna, a calamity or test that shall afflict those who have transgressed specifically, meaning that this test or this calamity will descend upon all of us if we don't do it, but it will specifically be for those that have transgressed. Once, Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu, he was addressing the Muslims and he said, "Oh people, you read this ayah but not in its right spot." As the ayah says, "Ya ayyuhan nas alaykum anfusakum la yadurrukum man dalla idha ihtadaytum." If you read this ayah without the seerah or without understanding it, you actually may be misled by its meaning. It says, "Oh people, alaykum anfusakum, worry about yourself. La yadurrukum man dalla idha ihtadaytum." That whoever went astray will not really harm you as long as you are going on the straight path. And Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu said, that is not the case actually. As Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, that if people see the transgressor and they don't force him or they don't reach out to him or give him advice to stop what he's doing, then Allah will afflict everyone with a punishment. Also, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam give us a good example, a beautiful picture of this image here. And he says, the example of someone who's ordaining good and forbidding evil, as if a people that boarded a ship. So some people went on the lower level of the ship and others went on the top level of the ship. So those that are in the lower level, every time they needed water, they had to go all the way up to the first level and then pass on top of them and get the water and come back down. So they were thinking amongst themselves, like, well, what if we just put a hole in the bottom of the ship so we get water right away? We don't have to bother the folks up top. So to their logic, that seemed the most logical way. But if the people on the top level let them do that, then they all perish. But if they don't do it, if they let them do that, they all perish. But if they don't, then they all be saved. And that's our example. We should all ordain what's good and forbid what's evil. Another one is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, consequences of not doing the sha'ira, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not accept our prayers. As Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, وَالَّذِي نَفْسِي بِيَدِهِ لَتَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَلَتَنْهَوُنَّ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ أَوْ لَيُوشِكَنَّ اللَّهُ أَنْ يَبْعَثَ عَلَيْكُمْ عِقَابًا مِنْهُ ثُمَّ تَدْعُونَهُ فَلَا يُسْتَجَابُ لَكُمْ. Oh, by Allah, whose my soul is within His hands, you shall ordain what's good, forbid what's evil, or else Allah is nearing to send in upon you a punishment, then you shall ask Him, make dua to Him, and He will not accept your prayers. Last, and one of the main consequences of not doing the sha'ira is la'natullah, Allah's wrath upon us. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, لُعِنَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا مِنْ بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ عَلَى لِسَانِ دَاوُودَ وَعِيسَى بْنِ مَرْيَمَ ذَلِكَ بِمَا عَصَوْا وَكَانُوا يَعْتَدُونَ كَانُوا لَا يَتَنَاهَوْنَ عَنْ مُنكَرٍ فَعَلُوهُ. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have sent His la'na upon Banu Israel on the tongue of Dawood and Isa alayhim as-salam. ذَلِكَ بِمَا عَصَوْا, for their sins that they've committed. وَكَانُوا يَعْتَدُونَ, and they used to transgress. كَانُوا لَا يَتَنَاهَوْنَ عَنْ مُنكَرٍ فَعَلُوهُ. They used to not forbid one another from evil deeds that they do. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam explained to us this hadith that said that Banu Israel, like their rabbis, they would see someone committing something and they'll come to him and say, you shouldn't be doing this, but the next day they'll be eating with them and sitting with them as if nothing happened. So they do one thing, but they don't follow up with it. So the question now arises, now how do we apply this very important sha'ira, as you all can tell at this point? This beautiful hadith that we all know again, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, مَنْ رَأَى مُنْكَرًا فَلْيُغَيِّرْهُ بِيَدِهِ فَمَنْ لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ فَبِلِسَانِهِ فَمَنْ لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ فَبِقَلْبِهِ وَذَلِكَ أَضْعَفُ الْإِيمَانِ. In another narration, and لَيْسَ فِي الْإِيمَانِ مِنْ بَعْدِ ذَلِكَ حَبَّةُ خَرْدَلٍ. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, whoever sees an evil act, then he shall change it with his hands, in sequence, with his hands first. And if he can, then he shall change it with his tongue. And if he can, then he shall change it with his heart. And that is the lowest part of Iman. So if you look at these separate levels that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, so first one is with your hand. A lot of people actually, when you hear with your hand, you think maybe applying force or hitting someone potentially. SubhanAllah, in the out west or in most countries, like hitting is probably not the right solution, although it may apply in certain cases, but generally speaking, you would find that maybe if you hit, subhanAllah, your wife or your child, they will call CPS on you, and then it's a completely different story. So, but looking at the beautiful seerah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he has never himself hit anyone. In his whole entire life, alayhi salatu wasalam, he has never hit anyone. So how do we change things with our hands? Say, I'm a politician. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put me in a place for me to be able to be in a political aspects where, say, now with the signature, as our scholars say, like I could sit here and talk to you guys about not drinking or not smoking. It may or may not change anything. Its impact will be very, very minimal. Whereas if you're a politician and you have the authority, with one signature, they ban alcohol sale, it should resolve. So that's one way of changing the evil, and that goes upon each one of us. كلكم راع وكلكم مسؤول عن رعيته. We're not all politicians. Like you may be a director in a hospital. You can change certain things with some of the decisions that you do at your company and so on and so forth. The next one is with your tongue. As Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, a lot of times when he saw something that he didn't like he would generally speak about it without pointing out to those individuals. He said, "ما بال أقوام يفعلون كذا أو كذا." As one time, three companions came to the household of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and they didn't find him. They found Aisha. So they were asking him about the life of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, like how does he pray, what does he do at night, so on and so forth. So she said, he alayhi salatu wasalam, he prays at night and he goes to sleep. He fasts some days and he breaks his fast other days, and then he gets married. So one of them said, "Oh, as for me, I pray all night, I don't even sleep." The other one said, "As for me, I fast every day, I never break my fast." And the other one says, I do not even get married so that I dedicate my life to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam came back, and he heard it, he got angry. So he called up for people, but he never named them. Up until today, I don't believe that the books of Sirah have named who those individuals are. So he just called them up, generally speaking, and he said, "This is my sunnah, and whoever does not follow is not from amongst me." Last but not least is with your heart. And that is the lowest point of Iman. Every single one of us here, although sometimes we see things that we don't agree with it, in your heart you should definitely reject it. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what's in your heart. As you all know, Allah does not look at our physical looks or our colors or tongues, whatever the case might be. He only looks at what's in the heart. So as a believer, if you see something that displeases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, at bare minimum, you should at least forbid it. So you should not accept it, or else as a Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this one arran may happen to your heart. It's a black dot, and time over time, one sin after the other, your heart will become dark when no advice will be efficient with it. So what are some of the conditions for those people that want to go into who want to call for ordaining good and forbid evil? So the scholar says that there's three things amongst other things, but three main things that I wanted to share with everyone here. So you need to be عالما بما تأمر, عالما بما تنهى. And first one, عالما بما تأمر, knowledgeable of what you're ordaining and forbidding. And then the second one is عاملا, doing what you're ordering people to do and forbidding what they shouldn't do. And the last and the most important one is رفيقا فيما تأمر, رفيقا فيما تنهى. You should be gentle on what it is you call people upon. So for the first one, عالما بما يأمر عالما بما ينهى, for you to be knowledgeable, what is it you're calling people to do. Like a lot of times, as our scholars taught us, you might find someone, like for instance at prayer, like they're praying and their hands are down, so you might approach them and say, "Why are you praying this? You should put your hands like that." When it comes to ordaining good and forbidding evil, it should be in the manners of Islam that are absolute, that everyone agrees upon. There's no doubt, like for instance, alcohol is haram, we all know what's haram and what's halal. The badiha, the nature of us as Muslims and as human beings will call upon those things. So that's the things that you should be, if you're at that level, focusing on, not the things that scholars have deferred upon. So those, if there's different schools of thought, it's not something that you would walk to people and say you should be doing this versus that, although there are other madahibs that allow it. So that's the first one. عاملا بما يأمر عاملا بما ينهى. You should be doing, or I should be doing whatever it is that I'm preaching for people to do. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah As-Saff, يا أيها الذين آمنوا لم تقولون ما لا تفعلون كبر مقتا عند الله أن تقولوا ما لا تفعلون. O you who believe, why do you say things that you don't do? Indeed, it is a great sin in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to say things that you don't do. In another hadith from Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that in the day of judgment, a person will be brought up in hellfire, and his guts will be out of his stomach in front of him, and he'll be circling around it just like a donkey. So the people of hellfire will come to him like, what are you doing? Like, didn't you used to ordain what's good and forbid what's evil amongst us? He said, yes, but I used to order you guys to do what's good, and I won't do it. And I used to forbid you guys from doing what's evil, and I'll do it. So it is very important to do what you say, although there are some exceptions. Obviously, say, I'm a father, I smoke, I know it's not the right thing to do, but my son is smoking too. Does that mean you don't tell your son, because you're not doing it? No, as a father, depending on the position, obviously, you still want to say the right thing, knowing that you want to change, but may Allah guide us all. Like, we're all deficient in one thing or another, but in certain cases, even though you're not doing what you're ordaining people to do, you should still tell people to do it. And last but not least is رَفِيقًا فِيمَا يَأْمُرُ رَفِيقًا فِيمَا يَنْهَى. If we can take anything away from this khutbah, is this specific thing. Is you should be gentle, whatever it is you're calling people to. You should be gentle, whatever it is we're telling people, forbidding people from doing. And beautiful examples from the life of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ come to mind when the Arabi came to the masjid, as you'll know, and they started urinating in the masjid. So the Sahaba, like they gathered around him and they wanted to hit him. So Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, no, let him be. So they waited until he was completely done, and then he called him up. He said, these messages are not for this purpose. It's not what they're created. It's not what they're made for. And then after that, he just told the Sahaba, go pour a couple buckets of water on it, and that was the end of the story. So if you see his gentleness, alayhi salatu wasalam, with dealing with situations like this. Another good example that came to mind one time, a Sahabi came to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he was in his gathering and said, Ya Rasulullah, i'dhan li bizdina. O Prophet of Allah, allow me to commit adultery. So just pause here for a minute. Imagine just for a second here that we're sitting here in this gathering and someone comes to the masjid and he stands up in the middle of khutbah. He said, oh Shaykh, not that I'm Shaykh or a mufti anyways, but he said, allow me to commit adultery. What do you think would happen to that person? Probably people shouting in all languages and calling him astaghfirullah, and those stray shoes that we have right there in the lobby, they'll be thrown at him right and left. So here you see the beautiful sunnah of our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the Sahaba, they actually wanted to come and beat him up for what he said. Like, how dare you come to the Prophet of Allah and ask him to allow you to commit adultery? That's blasphemous, right? So Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, no, come closer to me. So he put his hands on him. He said, would you like it for your mother? He said, no, O Prophet of Allah. He said, then so do people. No one likes it for their mother to commit adultery. Would you like it for your daughter? He said, no, O Prophet of Allah. He said, so do people. They don't like it for their daughters. Would you like it for your sister? And again, it's the same response. No, O Prophet of Allah. Would you like it for your aunt? No, O Prophet of Allah. And at the end, he alayhi salatu wasalam, he put his hands on him and he made a beautiful dua for him that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes zina most hatred to him. So that Sahabi says, when I came to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there was nothing more beloved to me than committing zina. But by the time I left, there was nothing most hatred to me than committing zina. So here you see in the beautiful life of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam how he put this very important Sharia and our deen in practice. So like I said, if we should, first and foremost, we should all know our beloved seerah of our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As for when you want to understand the Quran without knowing his life, you won't be able to fully understand the meaning of the Quran. But just to learn his character, alayhi salatu wasalam, how he dealt with matters, how he dealt with people, alayhi salatu wasalam. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم فيفوز المستغفرين أستغفروه. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله ثم أما بعد. One last thing that I wanted to touch base with everyone here is a very important thing as well, and then that is غلبة المصلحة على المفسدة. And the good, out of doing your ordaining good and forbidding evil, the good should outweigh the bad. Meaning, for instance, if you're talking to your son, he's on his cell phone, you're telling him to get off his phone, maybe the way you would approach him or the way you would tell him, given the 3 levels that we talked about, first with your hands, maybe you can remove the phone, second with your tongue, third with your heart. If the outcome, and that is a subjective thing, if you think the outcome of your action may result in a bigger ma'siyah or in a bigger sin, it's better not to do it. Best example again that comes in, and we can sit here and talk about the beautiful life of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but when he alayhi salatu wasalam opened Mecca, just Mecca, alayhi salatu wasalam, he once told Aisha radiallahu anha, as you know, Kaaba, the way it's currently constructed, that is not the original way it was built by Ibrahim alayhi salam and Ismail. So he told Aisha radiallahu anha, if it wasn't for your people being new to Islam, so this is when the Fatih just happened and people entered in Islam in bulk, but they were still closer to the Jahiliyyah period. They were still with their old habits and their old culture, so they haven't really fully comprehended Islam as a religion. So he said, if it wasn't for me fearing that your people might repel or might turn back or revert, then we would have demolished the Kaaba and rebuilt it upon its original foundation. The original Kaaba used to have 2 doors and it used to be flat on the surface, not the way it's built right now. But he alayhi salatu wasalam, with his wisdom, with his rahmatul lil alameen, he saw that even though that's something that had to be done, the outcome of that action would have resulted in something even worse than the act itself. So he decided alayhi salatu wasalam not to do it. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على سيدنا إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم وبارك اللهم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على سيدنا إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد اللهم يا حي يا قيوم يا ذا الجلال والإكرام اللهم إنا نسألك علما نافعا ولسانا ذاكرا وقلبا خاشعا اللهم إنا نسألك رضاك والجنة ونعوذ بك من سخطك والنار اللهم لا تدع لنا في يومنا هذا ذنبا إلا غفرته ولا مريضا إلا شفيته ولا مسكينا إلا سترته ولا ميتا إلا رحمته ولا حاجة من حوائج الدنيا والآخرة هي لك فيها رضا ولنا فيها صلاح إلا يسرتها لنا يا رب العالمين اللهم إنا نسألك رضاك والجنة ونعوذ بك من سخطك والنار اللهم أعز الإسلام والمسلمين اللهم أذل الشرك والمشركين ومن أراد بالمسلمين سوءا فاجعل له تدبيره في تدبيره سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين قوموا إلى صلاتكم يرحمكم